Happy Wednesday. Welcome to a very special edition of Techstrong Gang. We are here in Austin, Texas for the 10th annual SwampUP. This is going to be just a Mike Vizard and Alan Schimmel show. You're going to have a great time. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. I'm Alan Schimmel of Techstrong. I think I am. Or I may be in AI because we're all talking AI here. But I'm at the Barton Creek Omni Resort for the 10th annual JFrog SwampUP event. It's an event I've been coming to probably for 5 years or more. I'm joined by our Chief Content Officer. Got him out of New York. And
This is my first time here.
This is your first time?
Yeah.
Whoa. No hazing, no hazing. But you know him if you watch Techstrong Gang. It's Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, welcome. This is your first SwampUP.
It is, and you know, we're not really an official gang. We're just a couple of guys hanging out, I think, today. That's okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how many people does it take to be a gang versus a couple?
I don't know. I think 3.
So 3's a gang, 2's a couple.
I don't know.
All right, so you're watching Techstrong couple.
Uh-oh.
Hey, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, Mike, so, let me ask you, this is your first SwampUP, and it's early. Keynotes are going on, but what's been your impression so far?
I kind of like what I've seen so far, and I've kind of always liked where JFrog is going because they're pointed at some of the major issues of our time, and Shlomi Ben-Haim, as the keynote is over, we just saw that. He was talking a lot about AI and the intersection of DevOps, DevSecOps, and MLOps. And to his point, it's all the same practices. It's all one thing. And data scientists are now just becoming another persona that's in their workflow alongside of developers. When you think about it, an AI model, especially when deployed on the inference side, is just another software artifact. So it's a big one, and it's not quite managed the same way, but we've adjusted DevOps workflows for years. So I think that this is all part of this thing. The alliance that they announced today with Nvidia extends their whole strategy. They have this, last year, I think it was, or maybe early this year, they acquired a company that gave them an MLOps platform that they've been integrating with their DevOps platform, and now the deal with Nvidia extends out to Nvidia has a thing called NIM microservices and its own little repository. Those are essentially AI models and containers that you can repurpose, and then there's some actual trained AI models that they also make available that you can download from the Nvidia repository, and now you can do it using the JFrog repository. So this kind of creates the level of integration that's going to be required to make the dream work, right? Because if I don't have this integration, then there's no data scientist becomes a persona in the DevOps world. But that's what I got out of the first thing I saw today, and I think that's spot on.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a little bit of a longer view. And as I said, this is the 10th annual SwampUP, right? And JFrog is a company that got started with our Artifactory. That was their claim to fame, right? A repo for artifacts. They rode that DevOps wave hard. They were very astute in recognizing the DevSecOps movement, right, as becoming a primary DevOps driver. They made several acquisitions to become probably one of the premier DevSecOps platforms out there. They've recognized the AI story this year, and they've already started making some. They made an acquisition, an MLOps, which has some version of AI ops in there, and the Nvidia relationship. But I think the bigger story is JFrog is a company that has its pulse their finger on the pulse of developers and operations, and responds relatively quickly for a public company, though they're not Oracle or IBM, but they respond relatively quickly to market innovation and market conditions. And I thought, as you mentioned, I was in at Shlomi's keynote as well. I thought there were some interesting things coming out there. Number one, if the economy turns sour in the last quarter or whatever of this year, when we speak to CIOs and executives, 30% of them said they're taking out headcount first before anything else. However, if the economy stays well, then it's a different story. They're investing in AI, right? So AI is where the money's going. Last year I was here and they announced this Hugging Face partnership. Now they're taking it one step deeper to Nvidia itself. You have more of the details on that integration than I do. But again, I think they're riding these waves. That's what the frogs do. They ride the wave, right?
You know the part that I liked when he opened up with the whole thing about how AI is a threat to developers' jobs. And
Only if you don't
adjust and you don't make some
you don't
change
adapt.
and you don't adapt. And it's a funny thing out there, but I cannot tell you the number of companies that I get into or talk to, and they're going out of their way not to say that. They're basically trying to say, oh, it's all going to be apple
It's a
pie,
force multiplier.
it's all going to be this great thing. And the truth of the matter is, look, those jobs are going to change. They should change in ways that are better and more interesting and maybe less time writing a lot of rote scripts and code that maybe is not the highest value. But they're not going to go away either.
No.
I think ultimately it's going to be more fun to be a developer. I also think there's going to be more of them because the whole thing becomes more accessible. And, I don't know if folks are right about when they say that we're going to write more software in the next 2 years than we did in the last decade, but we're going to write a lot more software.
Absolutely. I think the trick there is who's a developer. Is it a professional developer? Is it a sometimes developer? Is it an amateur or citizen developer? Everybody's going to develop software because AI gives you the ability to do that. But again, they're riding this wave, and not only them, it's indicative of the whole industry, of the DevOps industry. I've spoken to people who are presenting here. Our friend Chris Correa is presenting later today on platform engineering and AI and stuff. Patrick Dubois, who was at our AI hackathon, is going to be talking about developing in AI. This is real, this is now, and I think this is why, frankly, JFrog is successful. They do that.
One of the dirty little secrets about AI that people don't talk enough about is, there isn't really a concept of version control amongst those AI models.
No.
Basically, you train them, and then you drop the inference engine, and then when they drift, you rip and replace them. This is going to be where I think the DevOps workflows need to be evolved and extended into those AI models to provide that sense of version control through those AI models, not so much in the model, but around it, so that I can keep track of it and understand what's been deployed when. Odds are good people are going to have multiple instances of the same AI models running because we don't rip and replace them all at once. It's going to get messy.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, you're talking to a company that does repos. They've got several. Maybe that's next year's SwampUP
There you go.
I also just wanted to mention that beyond Shlomi's keynote, I was there for Yov, the second co-founder. There's 3 co-founders to JFrog. Yov Landsman, their CTO, the architect of Artifactory, got up and he said something that I thought was very insightful and important to our DevOps audience out there. And that is silos shouldn't exist, right? And that played as well 10 years ago as it plays today, and it's at the heart of DevOps. He's then seeded the stage, though, for security. We're going to come back. We'll take a break here. We'll come back and talk about the significant security announcements and product stuff that came out of today's keynotes. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Very special edition here live at SwampUP.
All right, folks, we're back and we're talking about security, and specifically, JFrog launched at the show JFrog runtime security, and this is really aimed at Kubernetes clusters. It's optimized for that specific environment, but it gets at the heart of something that I have complained about on the gang a lot, and it's this disconnect between cybersecurity and the development teams, and now you can see, at least in a Kubernetes environment, in real time where the vulnerabilities are, which ones need to be prioritized, and then share that back through a workflow to developers so that they're not spinning their wheels chasing vulnerabilities that may not exist or frankly aren't that severe, because a lot of times developers will be like, well, I'm going to give you, I don't know, 2 days a month on work on patches and everything, but the issue becomes they work on the easy patches or the ones that don't matter as much, and we need to prioritize those efforts. So I kind of like where this whole storyline is going. I know you've been talking about DevSecOps for a while, but is this any different from what you've been hearing elsewhere?
So this isn't Grandpa's DevSecOps, right? A couple of things that were out in the keynote on this. Number one, their existing security platform that they announced last year, one of the things that it showed is I think it was something like 80% of vulnerabilities are not actually there, right? They're for various reasons. They're not applicable. They're
not loaded. They're not actually.
Well, they're not reachable or what have you. But, historically, DevSecOps has been about shifting left, getting to finding vulnerabilities, bugs, security issues further left in the development cycle. When you're talking about runtime security, you're moving right. So this, especially for JFrog, represents a major shift right. Now, does the world need another runtime security product? Honestly, probably not. But what makes this special is the integration into the JFrog platform. And that is, again, going back to something Shlomi said, there was a statistic in there that I think it came out of Gartner or out of one of the other analyst firms, that by 2027, 80% of enterprises will switch from point solutions to DevOps platforms.
Right.
And that's JFrog's play. So what this represents is a runtime security solution that goes back into that platform. And one may say that it doesn't even have to be best of breed because it harnesses the platform. And it may, in fact, be the only runtime security solution that harnesses the power of that platform. So for that and that alone, I think it's an important development, an important product. It's a new product. It's generally available. JFrog doesn't pre-announce stuff. When they announce it, it's available. But I think we'll also see it continue to evolve and get better over the coming weeks and months.
Yeah. It was a little confusing on the Gartner reference because the slide actually said Barclays, so I was kind of...
Yeah, I got that too. Yeah. So I don't know if it was Gartner or Barclays, but this is what Shlomi said.
There you go. But I've always been a little dubious of this whole shift left thing because, the phrase is shit left, right? It goes all the way to the developers who sit there and go, I don't have any context, I don't have time for this, and you're giving me a bunch of reports that you're telling me to act on, so, it goes on my to-do list when I get to it. The issue in my mind is, look, when we shift left, we need to give them the context as they're writing the code that says, hey, this thing that you're looking at this second has a vulnerability, and here's how not to let that happen. Then there's always going to be some issue that occurs in a production environment because new things get discovered, there are new threats, and so it's really a combination of shifting left and right to make this whole thing work.
Well, that goes, the theme for this year's SwampUP is, let me put on my glasses and read it again, is every ops.
Mm-hmm.
Every ops. And I think the same thing applies to shift. It's not just lift. left. It's every shift, everywhere. So it's right, it's left, it's up, it's down. And security is everywhere, right? Security and AI, assuming the economy stays well and the election goes well, whatever you think that means, AI and security are going to be big winners when it comes to budgets at large enterprises.
All right. I would also just say on this whole thing, we're running out of excuses for deploying software with vulnerabilities. I mean, I understand how we got here, but clearly the tools are getting better, the processes are getting better, and I think we're going to get to a point soon where it's just going to be considered negligence for deploying software with really
known vulnerabilities.
Yeah, with known vulnerabilities, especially the same ones we see on that list all the time, right? The top 10 list hasn't changed in 10 years. We're better than that.
I agree. Agreed. But, but this is new ground for JFrog with runtime security. And look, they've invested a lot in security and MLOps security. And it's kind of changed the trajectory. But as I said right from the outset, it's because they see that as being important to their customer base.
Yeah, and I give them props on the DevSecOps thing because it's not always the most popular topic, right?
No, but they're on it. And another thing, I was sitting and listening and talking to people here. For too long, for 10 years, right? In DevOps, we've heard DevOps is too developer-centric. And I realized in listening to the keynotes today, they're talking to ops people and DevOps people, not necessarily developers in terms of people who just develop code.
Hey man, it takes a village, right?
It does. It's good. All right. We're going to come back. They had another big partner announcement here at SwampUP. I know you've been covering it. We'll talk about that. You're watching a SwampUP Green edition of Techstrong Gang. We'll be right back.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right, folks, we're back and we're talking about this third big announcement. Earlier this year, JFrog announced an alliance with GitHub that was pretty broad, and the first wave of that was integrations around GitHub Copilot, not surprising. But at the show, they're now talking about a dashboard that shows you how to track all that code from the source code all the way through the binaries. And you've been doing this longer than me, but it kind of blows my mind a little bit that, what are we, 10 years into DevOps and we're finally talking about the melding of source code and binaries in a way that we can unify the management of that?
Well, I mean, to be fair, JFrog's been talking about it for 10 plus years. I think for a long time there was an artificial silo between the artifacts and the code itself. But I really, what I got out of this GitOps partnership is, look, GitOps is all in on Copilot, right? It's fundamentally changing the way people develop code. And let me back up. Some of you out here hear GitOps and you're saying, oh yeah, that's the repository where I put code.
GitHub, I think.
What did I say, GitOps?
Keep saying GitOps.
You know what? I drank too much frog juice. GitHub.
Giddy up.
Yeah, giddy up. But a lot of us think of GitHub and we're saying, oh yeah, that's where I keep my code. But when we talk about GitHub here, we're talking about GitHub as the CI/CD tool development environment. And, Copilot has become it's a game changer for developers. I mean, they've done a really nice job with GitHub Copilot, right? In terms of when you're coding. Now, JFrog has been working also within the IDE of providing security, right? As you're coding, it shows you, is this vulnerable? Is it the latest version? All of these things. The idea of that extension working in your GitHub IDE environment along with Copilot, both of these AI enabled, Gen AI enabled, I think is game-changing kind of stuff. That's big,
Yeah.
big stuff.
One of the things that they didn't talk so much about, but I thought was pretty cool, is they've kind of tucked in an Ask JFrog capability now. Like using the GitHub extensions, you can now, you don't have to study all that product literature. You can just throw in a little prompt, and it will tell you how something's supposed to work.
That's exactly, and that's what I mean by the AI stuff. I'm telling you that with the GitHub Copilot, look, I think it's a new day for developers. I think if we look back at this SwampUP 3-5 years from now, that's the big innovation.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I've been a little concerned about this issue where developers are getting all these AI tools. They get to write more code. And our legacy pipelines for managing that process are up to that task, or do we need to think through maybe some new platforms? I know that Shlomi was talking about you can't have 20 tools and expect to master them anymore. So will this move to AI kind of force some consolidation of the tools?
I think it absolutely is going to force consolidation. I think people will, as Shlomi said, move to DevOps platforms. Strategically, what does that mean for a GitHub and a JFrog, or a GitLab and a Google Cloud? Do we see that consolidation manifest itself in some M&A activity here, right? And I should mention, we mentioned a GitHub, and of course Microsoft owns GitHub, but JFrog has great integrations and relations with AWS and especially Google Cloud as well. I really think, and by the way, that was another thing that came out here, is the whole repatriation of moving from cloud to private data center. Shlomi called BS on it and said that's not what they see. They see, in spite of that, more people moving to public cloud. And they firmly believe the future is in the cloud.
I think that what I got out of it was more of a hybrid cloud. It's going to be everywhere.
There will be hybrid cloud, but we're not pulling back from public cloud. That continues to grow. I do think these public cloud providers, in order to continue to grow, are going to own the platform. You heard it here first.
I think they're going to also put more emphasis on private clouds. I can get a private cloud on a public cloud kind of setup if I want. The thing that always
called VMware.
Yeah, well, it also scratches my head a little bit because I always look at that and I like going, all right, well, if that's not a public cloud in the classic sense, so now it's a private cloud. So basically I'm leasing a private cloud that I'm just paying for monthly, and that's okay. It's called hosting back in the day.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, what Rackspace, right, is big into doing it again, and of course the Oracle Cloud. The distinction between public and private cloud to me was always a little hokey, because in my mind it was a shared tenancy model, and that was what delineated private from public. Will that go away? And if so, then there is no such thing as private and public. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, I do strongly believe that you're going to see consolidation as people adopt these platforms.
The one thing I didn't quite hear, and maybe I missed it, but I was listening for it. So I heard him talking about the need for integrated platforms, but I didn't hear the phrase platform engineering.
No, but I was hanging out here yesterday talking to a lot of the frogs, a lot of the speakers, and it is very heavily on the docket in terms of some of the sessions later. And I actually spoke with Luca Galante, who was here last night. They had a platform engineering roundtable. not part of SwampUP separately as platformengineering.org and I forgot the name of his company, Humanitech event at the venue here. So I think people are into platform engineering here. They recognize it. They just think it's part of the grand thing here. It's not killing anything.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's going to be like DevOps in the sense that each organization will determine what's the right level for them. Some may say the platform engineering team is going to manage infrastructure like a cloud service provider, expose some APIs, and the DevOps team may not be part of that. They may just be something that invokes that. Other people will take the DevOps team and the platform engineering team and
the SRE team
and try to meld it all together, and that's kind of ambitious, but who knows? And I just don't think it's a light switch.
It's not a light switch, but I think all of these platform engineering, SRE, cloud native, DevOps, they're all part of this grander how we do software, how we deliver technology, how we maintain, secure it. It's all part of it. Platform engineering will have a place, so will many of the other pieces. Fair?
Fair.
That is fair, Mike. But you know what? Our coverage here at SwampUP will continue. Later today, there's a bunch of interviews that we've done that you will be on here. And we'll have even more interviews from SwampUP on Thursday. So, we're in full-on SwampUP coverage here at Techstrong Gang.
And there's plenty of stories on DevOps.com and Cloud Native Now. By all means, check them out.
Absolutely. And, of course, there's plenty of Techstrong TV, including, I think we'll have some updates from Oracle World. And that'll be on DevOps.com and Cloud Native, etc.
Little Apple stuff tomorrow.
Yes, I wanted to talk about some Apple stuff. But that's red, this is green. You know what? It never ends here. It's conference season. This is Alan Schimmel with Mike Verzard. We hope you've enjoyed this special Techstrong Gang edition from JFrog SwampUP.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.